Indonesia is pursuing a strategy of economic nationalism, focusing on reducing dependency on foreign markets and enhancing its own economic interests. A key component of this strategy is downstreaming, where raw materials such as nickel, copper, and cobalt are processed domestically to create higher value products before export. This approach aims to boost the economy and create employment opportunities. Under President Prabowo Subianto, Indonesia is expanding its downstreaming efforts beyond nickel to include coal, fisheries, oil and gas, and agriculture, diversifying its economic base and reducing reliance on a single commodity. Today's podcast is about economic nationalism and downstreaming in Indonesia. Stay tuned and stay safe.
Welcome to this briefing, specifically for investors interested in Indonesia.
Yes.
Today, we're diving deep into economic nationalism and downstreaming.
Okay.
It's a really hot topic.
Yeah, it's shaping a lot of Indonesia's economic policy right now.
For sure, and we've analyzed a ton of reports, economic data, all that,
Great.
to bring you the most critical insights.
Wonderful.
So let's get started.
All right.
Indonesia's downstreaming strategy, especially in nickel, has been making headlines.
Yeah.
Like all over the place.
Yeah, and for good reason.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a game changer. Back in 2020, Indonesia's nickel exports were valued at just USD 1.4 billion.
Wow.
By 2023, that number skyrocketed to USD 34.8 billion.
Really?
That's
incredible.
that kind of growth is remarkable.
Yeah.
And it's created thousands of jobs, particularly in regions like Morowali and Halmahera.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is that workers in these nickel-producing areas are earning significantly more
Yeah.
than the national average. It sounds like downstreaming is having a tangible impact
It is.
in people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. But as with any rapid development,
Yeah.
there are challenges to
Totally.
consider.
Right.
For instance, Indonesia's dominance in the nickel market has led to price fluctuations.
I see.
We saw nickel prices drop to a 4-year low in early 2025.
Wow.
Now the government is considering cutting nickel mine quotas by 45% to stabilize prices.
45%. That's huge.
Yeah,
That could significantly impact global supply,
it could.
considering Indonesia currently accounts for 35% of it.
A lot of the supply. Yeah.
What does this mean for investors
Well,
looking at Indonesia's nickel industry?
it means that understanding the intricacies of government policy and its potential impact on commodity prices is really crucial.
Okay.
Now, adding another layer of complexity to this is the recent World Trade Organization ruling
Oh, right.
against Indonesia's nickel export ban.
Okay.
The EU successfully argued that the ban went against international trade rules.
So Indonesia is kind of caught in the middle. They are, between national interests and global trade agreements.
It's a tough spot.
Yeah. How they navigate this
Yeah.
will be something to watch closely.
Indeed. It's not just about nickel either.
Okay.
Indonesia's downstreaming strategy extends to other sectors as well.
You're right. President Prabowo has been very vocal about achieving self-sufficiency in palm oil.
Yeah.
He sees it as this strategic commodity
Mm-hmm.
and has even called for
Yeah.
increased security measures to protect palm oil plantations.
Interesting.
He's concerned about what he perceives as foreign interests trying to gain control
I see.
of this valuable resource.
Okay.
So palm oil is certainly a significant part of Indonesia's economy.
Yeah.
And the president's stance
Mm-hmm.
reflects a broader trend of prioritizing national interests.
It does, but it's not just about traditional industries either.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Indonesia is also looking to leverage its booming digital economy, which is projected to hit USD 146 billion by 2025.
Really?
We're seeing massive growth in e-commerce,
Wow.
fintech, and digital services.
That's great.
Yeah,
This presents a completely different set of opportunities
it does.
for investors, especially those interested in tech and innovation.
Sure.
But we can't ignore the environmental
Right.
and social impact of all this economic activity.
You're absolutely right. There are concerns about deforestation, water pollution,
Oh, yeah.
and the disruption of traditional livelihoods.
Of course. How is the Indonesian government responding
Whoa!
to these sustainability and social equity concerns?
They've been working on implementing stricter environmental regulations and are exploring ways to ensure that the benefits of economic growth reach all segments of society.
It's a tough balance.
It is a complex balancing act.
It sounds like Indonesia wants to have its cake and eat it too.
Yeah,
Boost economic growth
right.
while protecting the environment and its people.
Yeah.
Is that even possible?
It's certainly a challenge, but Indonesia is taking steps in the right direction.
Okay.
Now, to understand the bigger picture, let's examine Indonesia's overall economic outlook for 2025.
Perfect. I'm ready to delve into the numbers.
Okay.
What's the current forecast?
The government is projecting GDP growth between 5% and 5.2% this year.
Okay.
Some forecasts are even more optimistic, reaching 5.6%.
Oh.
A few factors are driving this optimism.
Okay.
For one, domestic consumption remains strong, especially with the government's decision to cancel the planned VAT tax hike.
That's great news for Indonesian consumers.
Yeah.
And for businesses that rely on that spending power.
Absolutely. What about inflation?
Yeah, what about inflation?
Inflation is relatively stable at 2.8%.
Okay.
Efforts to control food prices have helped keep it in check.
So we've got decent GDP growth.
We do.
And controlled inflation.
Yep.
What about attracting the investment needed to fuel this growth, especially for these ambitious downstreaming projects?
The government is encouraging what they call patient capital.
Okay.
They're asking financial institutions to provide long-term financing for these projects.
I see.
Recognizing that downstreaming requires substantial upfront investment, and that returns may take time.
So they're looking for investors who are in it for the long haul.
Precisely, not just quick profits.
Got it. But it's not all sunshine and roses.
Right.
There are a couple of areas that require careful monitoring.
Yes.
Of course. What should investors be keeping an eye on?
The national budget deficit needs to be managed prudently.
Okay.
And then there are the potential risks stemming from global economic uncertainties.
Oh, right.
Such as the ongoing trade tensions between the U.S. and China.
So even though Indonesia's economy seems to be doing well, it's still vulnerable to global economic headwinds.
That's right. It's a complex and interconnected world.
Yeah.
So what's the key takeaway for investors?
What is it?
Indonesia's economic landscape is dynamic, presenting both opportunities and challenges.
It sounds like a place that requires
It does.
careful consideration
Yeah.
and a deep understanding of the nuances at play.
Absolutely. Exactly. And to really grasp the impact of these policies, we need to look beyond the macro level and see how they're affecting everyday Indonesians.
Okay, so we're zooming in on the micro level now.
We are.
What kind of insights could we gain from that perspective?
Well, we have some recent data from the Indonesian Consumer Confidence Survey conducted in December 2024.
Okay.
This survey gives us a glimpse into consumer behavior and sentiment, which are key indicators of economic health.
That makes sense. Consumer confidence can make or break an economy.
It can.
What's the survey telling us?
One of the key findings is that the average Indonesian household is spending a significant portion of their income, around 74%, on consumption.
So they're not shying away from spending.
Nope.
That aligns with what we were discussing earlier about strong domestic demand being a driver of growth.
Exactly.
What are they spending their money on?
We see strong spending in durable goods, particularly among higher income households, those spending over 5 million rupiah per month.
Okay.
Think cars, appliances, electronics, things that signal confidence in the economy.
It sounds like Indonesian consumers are feeling pretty good about their financial situation.
Yes, and the data supports that.
Okay.
The debt-to-income ratio is stable at 10.5%, which means households are managing their debt responsibly.
That's good.
And the savings-to-income ratio is holding steady at 15.5%.
So they're spending, but they're also saving responsibly.
They are.
That's a sign of a healthy consumer base.
It is.
What does this mean for investors interested in Indonesia's consumer market?
It suggests that Indonesia offers a stable and potentially profitable market for businesses targeting Indonesian consumers.
Okay.
But of course, it's essential to look at the nuances.
Right.
The survey revealed some interesting variations across different age groups and regions.
Ah, yes, the regional differences.
Yeah.
Indonesia is such a vast and diverse archipelago.
It is.
What are some of the key regional variations that investors should be aware of?
Well, for example, the city of Semarang in central Java is experiencing a surge in consumer confidence.
Interesting.
People there are optimistic about both the current economic conditions and the future outlook.
That's great news for Semarang.
It is?
What about other areas?
Yeah.
Are there regions where consumer sentiment is less positive?
Yes. For instance, Palembang in South Sumatra has seen a dip in consumer confidence.
I see.
It underscores the importance of understanding regional dynamics.
Right.
Investors can't just assume that what's happening in one part of Indonesia is representative of the entire country.
Makes sense. It's about being strategic and doing your homework before making any investment decisions.
Exactly.
Now, shifting gears a bit, there's been a recent development on the international trade front that could have significant implications for Indonesia's downstreaming strategy.
You're referring to the World Trade Organization's ruling against Indonesia's ban on nickel ore exports.
Exactly. The WTO sided with the European Union, potentially forcing Indonesia to reconsider its policies.
Right.
This seems like a pretty big deal.
It is.
How could this ruling impact Indonesia's downstreaming ambitions?
Well, the WTO panel basically said that Indonesia's export restrictions violate global trade rules.
I see.
This puts Indonesia in a tough spot.
Yeah.
They could appeal the ruling,
Okay.
but if they lose, they might have to lift the export ban or face potential trade sanctions.
So they're walking a tightrope between protecting their domestic industries and adhering to international trade agreements.
Precisely. It's a classic dilemma for countries trying to balance their national interests with global economic integration.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
It will.
Speaking of global economic integration, let's talk about Japan's role in Indonesia's economic landscape.
Okay.
Japan has been a long-standing investor in Indonesia.
Yes.
And their economic ties are getting even stronger.
They are.
Just recently, Japan announced new investment projects worth USD 815 million.
Wow, that's a hefty sum.
What are they investing in?
The bulk of it, USD 660 million, is going towards expanding the Patimban port in West Java.
Ah, yes, the Patimban port.
Yeah.
It's strategically important for Indonesia's trade and logistics, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's meant to ease congestion at the existing Tanjung Priok port in Jakarta.
Right.
It's a crucial part of Indonesia's infrastructure development plans.
So Japan is playing a key role in helping Indonesia upgrade its infrastructure.
They are.
What else are they involved in?
They're also investing in a feasibility study for a high-speed railway in Java,
Oh, wow.
which, if it comes to fruition, would be a game changer for connectivity on the island.
A high-speed railway, that would be huge
Would.
for the Indonesian
A
economy.
huge boost, yeah.
Any other notable Japanese investments?
Japan has also pledged to conduct feasibility studies for 8 potential fishing ports in Indonesia,
Really?
including some in the strategically important Natuna Islands.
Okay, so they're not just focusing on big-ticket infrastructure projects, but also supporting Indonesia's fishing industry.
That's right.
What's the strategic significance of developing fishing ports in the Natuna Islands?
The Natuna Islands are located in the South China Sea,
Right.
an area where there are overlapping territorial claims.
I see.
By developing these ports, Indonesia is asserting its presence in the region and bolstering its maritime security.
So it's a win-win for both Indonesia and Japan.
It is.
Indonesia gets much-needed investment and infrastructure, while Japan strengthens its economic and strategic ties in the region.
Exactly. It's a great example of how economic cooperation can go hand in hand with geopolitical interests.
For sure. Now, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to emphasize that Indonesia's economic landscape is constantly in flux.
It is.
It's a dynamic and complex system,
Right.
influenced by both domestic and global factors.
For sure.
It sounds like investors need to stay informed, be adaptable,
Yeah,
and be ready to navigate a constantly shifting landscape.
absolutely. What else should investors keep in mind as they explore opportunities in Indonesia?
That's a good question.
They need to understand that Indonesia is a country with a unique economic and political environment.
Oh,
It's not a place for passive investors.
got it.
Success in Indonesia requires active engagement, thorough analysis, and a long-term perspective.
It sounds like those who are willing to put in the effort and embrace the complexities will be the ones who reap the rewards.
Absolutely. It seems that way, but let's zoom out for a moment and consider the bigger picture.
Okay.
We've explored the potential of Indonesia's downstreaming strategy,
Right.
but we've also highlighted some risks.
Sure.
Market volatility, global trade tensions,
Yeah.
environmental and social concerns.
Of course.
So is this push for economic nationalism truly sustainable in the long run?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
Can Indonesia achieve its goals
Right.
without compromising its long-term economic health or its standing in the global community?
Exactly. To answer that, we need to consider a few key factors.
Right. Let's break down. What's the first factor that investors should be thinking about?
Diversification.
Okay.
Currently, Indonesia's downstreaming efforts are heavily concentrated in nickel.
Right.
That's great if nickel prices remain high
Mm-hmm.
and demand continues to grow.
Yeah.
But what happens if the market shifts?
That's true.
What if demand for nickel drops?
Yeah.
Or new battery technologies emerge that don't rely on nickel?
Putting all your eggs in one basket could
Yeah,
be risky.
exactly. That's why expanding downstreaming to other sectors is crucial.
Okay.
Indonesia has a wealth of natural resources.
Right.
Bauxite, copper, tin, you name it.
Wow.
Developing downstream industries in these sectors would make Indonesia's economy more resilient to fluctuations in global commodity markets.
So it's about spreading the risk, creating a more diversified industrial base that's not solely dependent on nickel.
Precisely, and that brings us to the second crucial factor, attracting foreign investment.
Okay.
Indonesia needs capital and expertise
Yeah.
to develop these downstream industries.
Right.
But its economic nationalism,
Uh-huh.
while popular domestically,
Yeah.
can sometimes create uncertainty for foreign investors.
It's that balancing act again.
Yes.
Wanting to control strategic resources
Right?
while also needing to attract foreign capital.
Yeah, how can Indonesia strike that balance effectively?
Yeah, that's the question.
By creating a stable and predictable investment environment, then
Right.
clear regulations,
Yeah.
consistent policies, a level playing field.
Right.
These are essential for attracting and retaining foreign investment.
So it's about sending a clear signal to the world
Mhm.
that Indonesia is open for business,
Yes.
but will also protect its interests.
Absolutely. What else should Indonesia be doing to reassure foreign investors?
That's a good question.
Transparency and accountability are vital.
Okay.
Investors need to feel confident that their investments are protected
Right.
and that the rules of the game won't suddenly change.
Transparency builds trust,
It does.
and trust is essential for any successful business partnership.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got diversification
Right.
and attracting foreign investment. What's the third key factor for sustainable growth?
Sustainability.
Okay.
In every sense of the word. Indonesia can't afford to sacrifice its environment
Of course.
or the well-being of its people in pursuit of economic growth.
It's about finding that sweet spot,
It is.
economic development that benefits both people and the planet.
Exactly what specific steps should Indonesia be taking to ensure sustainable growth?
Yeah, what were they?
Stricter environmental regulations are a must, along with robust enforcement mechanisms.
Okay.
They need to prioritize responsible resource management, invest in renewable energy, reduce carbon emissions, and transition towards a greener economy.
It sounds like a comprehensive approach to sustainability is needed.
It is.
What about addressing social equity concerns?
That's equally important, ensuring that the benefits of economic growth are shared fairly,
Right.
and that local communities aren't displaced or marginalized by industrial development is crucial.
It's about creating an inclusive economy where everyone has the opportunity to benefit. So with all of these factors in mind,
Yeah.
what should investors be looking for as they consider opportunities in Indonesia?
Look for companies that align with Indonesia's long-term vision for sustainable and inclusive growth.
Okay.
Look for companies investing in renewable energy, adopting environmentally friendly technologies, and implementing responsible social and governance practices.
So it's not just about chasing profits.
Yeah.
It's about investing in companies committed to doing business the right way.
Exactly. Look for companies that prioritize transparency, accountability, and ethical business conduct.
Okay.
Those are the companies that will be best positioned to thrive in Indonesia's evolving economic landscape.
What a great point. Investing in Indonesia is about more than just short-term gains. It's about partnering with a nation on a transformative journey toward economic self-reliance, sustainable development, and a brighter future for its people.
It's a journey full of complexities and challenges, but it also presents incredible opportunities for those willing to take the deep dive and understand the dynamics at play.
Indonesia's economic story is still being written, and investors have the chance to be a part of that story.
Choose wisely, invest responsibly, and let's grow together.
That's a great note to end on. We hope this deep dive has provided you with valuable insights into Indonesia's economy and the potential of its downstreaming strategy. Remember, knowledge is power in the world of investment.
Thank you for joining us.
And to all our listeners, stay curious, stay informed, and as always, stay ahead of the curve.